Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, John Haynes, A Conversation with Death. The man who rules the world and the angel of darkness take on a horde of demons in this inaugural John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, A Conversation with Death for 99 cents on Kindle or in paperback today. After watching the back 6 episodes of Netflix's Luke Cage last year, I was going into season 2 with a lot of hesitation. And the reason why I was going into season 2 with a lot of hesitation was because after the back 6 episodes of Luke Cage, it seemed like there was a serious quality issue at Marvel Studios, and it looked like there was a bit of a decline in quality because after those back 6 episodes of Netflix's Luke Cage season 2, Iron Fist, The Defenders, and Jessica Jones season 2, it looked like Marvel Studios' Netflix division was in a bit of trouble creatively. However, after I saw the trailer for Netflix's Luke Cage season 2, I saw that I didn't really need to worry much. And after I watched Netflix's Luke Cage season 2's first 8 episodes, I can honestly say that while Netflix's Luke Cage lost a step in season 1 with those back 6 episodes, they found their footing again and they started to build some serious momentum this year because not only is Netflix's Luke Cage season 2 back on track, it is now the best superhero adaptation Marvel has ever produced. Now, Netflix's Luke Cage season 2 picks up where season 1 left off. And with the Netflix's Luke Cage season 2, we see Luke Cage trying to follow Pop's advice and keep moving forward. And as he keeps moving forward, he is trying to rebuild his life and he's dealing with the consequences and ramifications of being Harlem's hero. He's no longer an invisible man in the shadows, he's out in the spotlight, and as he's out in this spotlight and the light shines down on him, he's left to ponder if he is the bulletproof black man, is becoming a god to the people in his community, or is he on his way to becoming a monster? And that's really something that's really thought-provoking about Netflix's Luke Cage season 2, is that they're digging deep into the character of Luke Cage to show us that while this bulletproof black man is tough on the outside, he has human vulnerabilities on the inside. And that's what makes Luke Cage a very rich and complex character this season, seeing this character not just be this indestructible black man who has these incredible powers, but he's a man struggling with all of these issues in his life, like his relationship with his pastor father, and his relationship with Claire Temple, who wants to have a connection with this man who is invulnerable, but wants to get to the vulnerable side of him and get to his emotional side, because when it comes down to women, they want to bond with a man emotionally, and she's wondering how does she do this with this bulletproof black man who in the first episode we find out is twice as powerful than before, because in the first season your Luke Cage took a second Power Man bath, and that second Power Man bath made it where his skin is so hard now that Judas bullets cannot hurt him anymore. So he's physically indestructible, but he's still emotionally vulnerable, and he has to deal with many challenges that are dealing with his emotional side, like his issues with his father, and he has to deal with his relationship with Clara Temple, and he has to also deal with his own ego as he deals with this newfound popularity and fame that he's getting for being Harlem's hero, because as Harlem's hero, you have all these people who are making him out to be this godlike character, and he's struggling with these issues as related to this fame as it relates to his own humanity. And I loved seeing that type of depth added to this character, and I also really enjoyed seeing what they did developing him as a person and giving him all those layers and depth that the character needs to be a really fascinating person. Now, while Cage is out here investigating a brand of heroin with his name on it, he's drawn into this mystery involving Shades and Mariah Dillard, who are also looking to move forward. And they're looking to move forward by selling their guns to go buy this black-owned plastics company. And they want to use that money to go out here and do some things in the community. Now, your Shades and your Mariah, they're still at it, terrorizing this black businessman. However, there's somebody else looking to get after them. And your Bushmaster, the Jamaican gangster from Brooklyn, he wants to get revenge on the Stokes for murdering his family. Now, Bushmaster has been taking out the competition, and it becomes a battle for Harlem in Cage season 2, and the whole challenge is seeing if Cage can protect the community and prevent it from being harmed by not only Shades and Mariah, but this Bushmaster who has powers to equal Luke Cage himself. Now, when I look at the whole story for Luke Cage season 2, there's a lot of notes and nuances that remind me a lot of Batman Returns and a lot that reminds me of 1989's Batman. And I looked at a lot of the visuals and a lot of the things related to the story, and they really remind me of Batman 89 and Batman Returns, and that's a great thing to see because both of those films were richly layered and had a lot of depth to them, and were more than superhero stories. They were stories about, the human condition. And Bushmaster, as I see it, is the best villain they ever produced at Marvel Studios because Bushmaster, as I see it, is on the same level as Jack Nicholson's Joker and Heath Ledger's Joker, and he shows that Marvel Studios has finally learned how to write a bad guy. He's learned how to build up a bad guy and learned how to generate a lot of heat for a bad guy because your Bushmaster literally dominates every scene that he's in, and he has such presence that you feel the threat resonating off this guy, and you feel the danger on him. And the thing that really makes you look at this bad guy and respect him as a bad guy is that he has this confidence, he has this swagger, and then you add the Power Man process and the incredible Eddie Gordo style capoeira moves, and you have an incredibly compelling villain in Bushmaster. And Bushmaster's motivations are very well written. When you look at Bushmaster, he has a clear and concrete reason for going after the Stokes, and he has a clear and concrete threat in that if your Bushmaster comes to Harlem, he's going to bring havoc because your Bushmaster is an extremely violent man, and in some ways, just like the old Jack Nicholson Joker, he brings chaos wherever he goes. And when I look at your Luke Cage season 2, it's a rock solid season, and it shows how a group of writers and producers can really not only bounce back but take themselves to another level, because Luke Cage season 2 really takes things to another level. Now, a lot of people have heard me talk about the whole concept of more in many of my videos regarding African American fantasy and science fiction, and your Luke Cage season 2 gives us more. And what they do in Luke Cage season 2 in giving us more is give us those richer, more complex characters, the multi-dimensional characters. They give us a rich and layered and multi-dimensional story. They give us an exploration of the human condition, and they give us all the things that really elevate a story to another level. And the reason why I say that Luke Cage season 2 elevates things to another level is because when I look at your Luke Cage season 2, it's not looking manufactured like these Marvel Cinematic Universe movies as of late have been looking like your Spider-Man Homecoming, like your Black Panther, like your Avengers Infinity War, where they feel like they all roll off an assembly line and look the same. No, when you look at your Luke Cage season 2 has a heart, it has a soul, it has a spirit. It's a world all its own, and that world comes to life and literally takes you away from the rest of the Marvel Universe and makes its own world and makes its own place. And that distinction is what makes a Luke Cage episode special, because everything in a Luke Cage episode takes you into the black community, into this fantasy world that is revolving around the black community, takes us into black culture, takes us into the black experience, and gives us a rich and unique black experience. When you watch Luke Cage, you're not just watching any old science fiction Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. It's not like watching one of these manufactured Marvel movies like Avengers Infinity War or Black Panther or Captain America Civil War, where everything, again, feels the same. When you watch Luke Cage Season 2, you were taken into a world. You were taken into an experience. And this is what I talk about regarding more. Because when you get more, you want more from it. Because when I look at the cinematography in a Netflix Luke Cage Season 2 episode, every episode is literally like a fusion of Spike Lee's cinematography and Tim Burton's dark imagery. And then you combine that with the music in every episode, which sets mood and tone, whether it be hip hop, blues, jazz, R&B. It just transports you to a Harlem and makes you feel the experience of living in Harlem, being in the black community, and experiencing life in the black community. And it's this fantasy world. It just feels so real that it literally it's like being in the neighborhood, but everything fits so organically. And when Luke Cage uses his powers, it feels so organic. And another thing I really loved about Netflix's Luke Cage Season 2, again, was the layering, because we saw the contrast between Cage's Harlem and Bushmaster's Brooklyn. Now, Cage operated out of Pop's Barbershop, and you have your Bushmaster operating out of the Caribbean restaurant. I loved seeing that contrast between the Brooklyn and Harlem, and seeing the cultures of both communities being distinct. How you're seeing the Jamaican community in Brooklyn, and how you're seeing the Black American community in Harlem, and how they're shown as two different cultures and two different communities, and you see how both are distinct, and you see how both have different ideas and different sets of values. And seeing all that substance is what makes your Luke Cage Season 2 a classic, because you can see the craftsmanship in almost every episode. You can see how every scene is literally there for a reason. How you can see how every story there is there for a reason. How every line has a purpose, and how every action and motivation flows organically into making this whole season into one powerful story arc and one very organic story arc. Because everything in this season has been organic, and I have loved seeing them use organic storytelling where everything comes out of the story and not out of ridiculous plot devices or contrivances. Everything is laid down in a foundation from the start, and you start to see how things come together in that organic fashion to make that everything flow in this series to make a cohesive storyline. All the characters, all their purposes are there. Everything is tight and well crafted. However, the only issues I have with Netflix Season 2 are a handful of small flaws. And one of the flaws I had with this series was the gynocentrism that's trying to creep into the show. Because when I look at one of those episodes where Cage was playing Captain Save-'em to Cockroach's girlfriend, I saw that as a little bit of simping being trying to be put into this series, in the same way I saw all the gynocentrism that was in Ryan Coogler's Black Panther. Now, I get that Cage is a hero. However, a streetwise brother is going to be smart enough to understand that he doesn't put his cape on in that way. However, what I liked about that episode is it showed that there were consequences for playing Captain Save-'em, and those Captain Save-'em moves that he did led to him jamming himself up. And this is something I saw that was a little bit out of character, because when it comes down to Cage, he knows that he has a criminal record and he really cannot be doing things to put his freedom at risk. So I thought that that was a little out of character for Cage overall. Now, I know he's a hero, but I wouldn't think that he would put himself at risk like that, beating up Cockroach like that. It just seemed a little out of character for me. And I really was not a fan of this Piranha Jones character. Now, this Piranha Jones character, he's a certified coon, and that was another thing I didn't like seeing in Netflix's Luke Cage Season 2, was seeing them try to bring this coon in an insidious fashion. Because when you have this Piranha Jones character, he's supposed to be this guy who's supposed to be this intelligent lawyer who's supposed to be taking care of Mariah Dillard's money, and he's supposed to be trying to help Cage when he gets into trouble with this cockroach. and he offers to give him the money if Cage makes an appearance. And when Cage makes his appearance in that episode, it's like watching a minstrel show, because all these guys are just laughing at him, and then they have these white guys laughing at him. And I understand what they're trying to say with this episode about Luke Cage and white people trying to make him out to be some sort of novelty, but it was just really disgusting to see this guy cooning and then trying to make him out a joke. But what they did in that episode also was showing that, this guy who was trying to make a fool out of Luke Cage wound up needing the help of Luke Cage at the end of the day. And I really was not a fan of the use of the N-word throughout the season, because one of the things that's really great about Netflix's Luke Cage is that everyone in Luke Cage presents that humanized portrayal of black people and that humanized portrayal of the black community. And with the whole first season of Luke Cage, everyone was really dignified. And one of the ways they showed how dignified they were was not using that word. And seeing the use of that word being brought into this series was one of those things that really concerned me, because when I see that the gynocentrism and the cooning starting to creep in, it really concerns me, because these are the elements that come into a series that take a dignified show like your Netflix's Luke Cage and turn it into a minstrel show like your Scandal or ABC's The Mayor. And I don't want to see that happen to Luke Cage, because Netflix's Luke Cage is one of the most positive portrayals of an African American hero, and one of the best series that features an all-black cast. It's really well crafted and well done. And I look at Netflix's Luke Cage, and this show is rock solid, but it just has those few issues and the same usual issues that Netflix series usually have with writing and pacing. Now, the writing on Netflix's Luke Cage has been very solid, but in some episodes I could see where they padded some things out to make things longer, and these pacing issues really slowed things down. Some episodes, like Netflix's Luke Cage's Season 2, Season 6 and 7, had scenes that were repetitive, and then they had dialogue that ran way too long, like the chase scene with Piranha Jones and Luke Cage. That just went way too long. And the showdown between Luke Cage and Bushmaster in episode 7 it was an unnecessary scene, and the writing there was really awkward and forced. That fight ran way too long, because when I look at that fight scene, that should have been a really short fight, but the series just ran it a little too long. And these are things that the Netflix team really need to work on, because if they tighten up stuff as related to their scripts, and they tighten up things as related to the pacing, they could really not only go beyond the high level they went this year, they could go to an even higher level. Because when I look at your Netflix's Luke Cage, this show is one of the strongest series they have. And I really look at this series and I look at the performances, and there really need to be some Emmy nominations for Luke Cage, because Mike Cotler was in top form as Cage. Alfre Woodard really deserves an Emmy nomination for her performance as Mariah, and Simone Missick really deserves an Emmy for her performance as Misty Knight. And the guy who played Bushmaster, he really needs to be given some sort of Emmy, because he was channeling both Jack Nicholson and Heath Ledger in his performance as Bushmaster. In episode 4, when I look at the way that Sally Richardson Whitfield directed episode 4, that episode alone deserves an Emmy, because everything in that episode was perfect from fade in to fade out. Episode 4 was the best episode of Luke Cage. That was the confrontation between Cage and Bushmaster. But the scene cuts, the transitions, and the framing of every scene was absolutely perfect. The acting was perfect. I mean, that was literally like watching Empire Strikes Back level quality in one episode, because that was how well crafted that episode was. And if this show doesn't get any sort of consideration from the Emmys, that would really be a serious crime. And I tell everyone, you definitely cannot miss out on Luke Cage Season 2. Every episode of this show isn't just an episode, it's an experience. It takes you into a world of black culture and the black experience, and it really feels completely distinct from anything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. With Netflix's Luke Cage, we finally have an example of what happens when Marvel Studios gives people more. And when Marvel Studios gives people more, they wind up giving us a series that is on the creative level of Tim Burton's Batman 89, Batman Returns, and Chris Nolan and David Goyer's The Dark Knight. Because when I look at Netflix's Luke Cage Season 2, it is on that level of quality. And if this show goes on to a third season, I think they're going to make a masterpiece that takes the series on to an even higher level. This series gets my highest recommendation, and it's a series that you just can't miss. You have to go see Netflix's Luke Cage Season 2. This series is one of the best things Marvel Studios has ever produced. And I would honestly say it's the best thing Marvel Studios has ever produced artistically. If you'd like to try some of my SJS Direct publications like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, The Temptation of John Haynes, and the Spinsterella trilogy, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com in the description box. There you will find all my books in paperback and ebook. And if you want to help me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.